Welcome back. From requesting public records as a reporter to teaching about our state's Freedom of Information Act, Tom Hennick has done a lot to promote transparency in government here in Connecticut. We're happy to have him joining us this morning as he retires from Connecticut's Freedom of Information Commission. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Eric. Happy to be here.
Every reporter in the state of Connecticut, and this is a little bit inside baseball, but in 15 years as the chief investigative reporter here, I probably called you 100 times with questions, and every other reporter. So if anyone you watch on TV, read in the newspaper, has probably called Tom with the question. You're the go-to guy. You've been doing this for 22 years.
22 years.
What's it going to be like to say goodbye to this role?
I don't know. I know what I'm going to do with my free time, but always happy to try to help. That's kind of the motto.
Well, tell us about your role. So the Freedom of Information Act allows reporters, but just average citizens as well, to find out things about their government and the working of their government. If someone says to you, you bump into someone at a dinner party, they say, Tom, what's FOI? What do you tell them?
You tell them it's about access. Access to two basic things, the meetings of public agencies, the records of public agencies. And people need to understand that's what the focus is, but the intent is to encourage people to be involved, to get involved in what their government agencies are doing so that they know what's going on, so when it comes time for a key vote, when it comes time to vote on a budget, to vote people into office, they've got the information to work on. Democracy doesn't work unless people are informed.
And I joked that reporters have called you dozens, hundreds of times, and many of them have. But part of the value of why I wanted you here as you say goodbye to this role is because a lot of our viewers haven't. And there may be things about their government that they could find out if they knew more about FOI. So is the general idea that, I know there's some exceptions that are carved out in the Act, and they've grown over the years. But unless there's an exception that says you can't have certain things, if your government's doing it, you can have it.
You can have it. That's right. A lot of times people, simple things like, gee, we heard there's a big Walmart supercenter that's going to go up in town. We want to find out where it's going to be, where the drainage for the parking lot is going to be. This law allows people to go to the meetings where that's being discussed, to see the plans, to have a better idea of how it's going to impact their lives on a day-to-day basis. You mentioned the media a couple times. Interestingly enough, the bulk of our inquiries come from outside the media, which is rewarding because people realize that they have rights as well.
And another big part of your job as the public education officer is to do trainings. I know in most of Connecticut's 169 towns, you've done at least one training over your decades there.
161 of the 169 have witnessed a workshop. So.
And what do you try to convey when you're not necessarily talking to the requester, but to the person who's getting the request?
Trying to get the agencies to understand that they have obligations to be transparent. That democracy only works if the public knows what's going on, but also that they have rights as well. The legislature did try to create a balance so that a public agency, there's some things that should be discussed in private. They're negotiating a land deal. There's a personnel matter that things shouldn't necessarily be aired in public. So we try to tell them, what their obligations are, but also what their rights are, so that the law doesn't become something that, oh my God, FOI, and that they've got a burden, and they understand that it's part of their routine, it's part of what they should do, and we try to give them the tools to work with so that FOI becomes less of a problem for them.
When the FOI, the Freedom of Information Act, was created, there were just a handful of exemptions. Now it's up over 24 things that it doesn't apply to. As you've seen it evolve over your time, have you been concerned that it's going too far in that direction?
Yes, and you know what the thing is? Many of the exemptions are proposed in the legislature are well-meaning. Oh, it's just one more exemption, but what it is, it's just like taking one more brick out of the wall. Some of them may be well-meaning, but they don't necessarily add up. They're things that are probably unnecessary.
We just saw a bill that was voted on in the Senate this past session talking about certain addresses of public officials being exempt. And I read an editorial about it, and they said just take a public official and type their name and then CT after, and you'll probably find their home address in Google. So is that the kind of thing where it's being added, but maybe?
Right. It's section a little inside 1-217 has a list of addresses of home addresses of individuals you can't give out. And every year somebody else wants to be on that list. But your point, all you have to do is Google somebody today. That was, again, a well-meaning exception when it was put in back in the late 90s, I think. But today it doesn't accomplish much.
There's a great piece, and I'd encourage our viewers to check out the CT Examiner. Robert Starace, a longtime reporter, wrote a great piece profiling you on your way out the door over there. So check that out for more information. But do you have some favorite memories, some wacky requests, some things that have come in?
Yeah, some of the ones that, people inmates have FOI requests as well. And one of the ones that always sticks in my mind is a series of complaints from inmates because the DOC wouldn't give them the contents of the meatloaf. I always thought that was one of the ones that just sort of, I don't.
Were they looking for the ingredients to make it at home? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Then the other thing is, we deal with some really serious issues. We've had complaints, and it seems that all roads lead to FOI one way or another. Sandy Hook, as horrible a situation as has ever hit our state, we had complaints about that. And at the next turn, it's somebody who's having a dispute with a neighbor about chickens in the backyard. And we deal with all kinds, but to those people, it's important. And again, their rights to those records, the rights are the same. The issues are obviously have a different weight, but the issues are.
So you can request these government documents. If you don't get them and you believe that was incorrect, you have a certain time, but you have to appeal to the Freedom of Information Commission.
Right. My role has been to educate, tell people what their rights are, obligations are. When they try to exercise those rights, if they feel that they've been denied the access that they have a right to, then they file a complaint with our commission. Our commission is unique in that it has the power to issue orders. There are similar laws in other states, but our commission is the only one that can say to a public agency, no, you were wrong, give out that record. And if they don't, they can be subject to court action. So.
Well, 22 years in that role. I know you told me before we started you don't know what's next. You're still there helping with the transition at this point. But I assure you, whether it's just an average Joe who called you or somebody who read a report where you helped a reporter with a question on how to get something, a big debt of gratitude to you, Tom Hennick. There's a lot of information has gotten out there because of your assistance. So
thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for being with us
Happy
here on
to do
CT23.
Delighted.
Thanks.